Francisco Alves Mendes Filho, better known as Chico Mendes, was a Brazilian rubber tapper, trade union leader and environmentalist. He fought to preserve the Amazon rainforest, and advocated for the human rights of Brazilian peasants and indigenous peoples. He was assassinated by a rancher on December 22, 1988. The Chico Mendes Institute for Conservation of Biodiversity, a body under the jurisdiction of the Brazilian Ministry of the Environment, is named in his honor. Early life: Francisco Chico Alves Mendes Filho was born on December 15, 1944, in a rubber reserve called Seringal Bom Futuro, outside of Xaparai, a small town in the state of Acre. He was the son of a second-generation rubber tapper, Francisco Mendes, and his wife, Ira Sensei. Chico was one of 18 siblings, only 6 of whom survived childhood. At age 9, Chico began work as a rubber tapper. Schools were generally prohibited on the rubber plantations. The owners did not want the workers being able to read and do arithmetic, because they would then be likely to discover they were being exploited. Mendes did not learn to read until he was 18 years old. Activism. At first I thought I was fighting to save rubber trees, then I thought I was fighting to save the Amazon rainforest. Now I realize I am fighting for humanity. To save the rainforest, Chico Mendes and the Rubber Workers Union asked the government to set up reserves as they wanted people to use the forest without damaging it. They also used a very effective technique they called the impate, where rubber tappers blocked the way into rubber reserves, preventing their destruction. The Rubber Tappers Union was created in 1975 in the nearby town of Brasilia, with Wilson Pinheiro elected as president and Mendes as its secretary. Mendes also played a central role in the creation of the National Council of Rubber Tappers in the mid-1980s. Mendes' group also had strong ties with the National Campaign for the Defense and Development of the Amazon, and helped locally organize Workers' Party support. When the first meeting of this new union was held in 1985, in the capital Brasilia, rubber tappers from all over the country came. The discussion expanded from the threats to their own livelihoods to the larger issues of deforestation, road paving, and cattle ranching. The meeting also had the effect of catching the attention of the international environmentalist movement, and highlighting their plight to a larger audience. The group embraced a larger alliance with environmentalism, rather than strict Marxism, in spite of the bourgeois associations of the former. Another result of these discussions was the coining of the concept and the term extractive reserves. In November of that year, Adrian Cole, an English filmmaker, filmed much of the proceedings of this meeting as part of a documentary he was making about Mendes, which aired in 1990. Mendes believed that relying on rubber tapping alone was not sustainable, and that the seringueiros needed to develop more holistic, cooperative systems that used a variety of forest products, such as nuts, fruit, oil, and fibers. And that they needed to focus on building strong communities with quality education for their children. In March 1987, the Environmental Defense Fund and National Wildlife Federation flew Mendes to Washington, D.C. in an attempt to convince the Inter-American Development Bank, World Bank, and U.S. Congress to support the creation of extractive reserves. Mendes won several awards for his work, including the United Nations Environmental Programme Global 500 Roll of Honor Award in 1987, and the National Wildlife Federation's National Conservation Achievement Award in 1988. In 1988 a man called Dali Alves da Silva bought part of a rubber reserve called Cachoeira, where relatives of Mendes lived, and which was affiliated to the local Rural Workers Union in Xaparai. While the sale of the section was disputed by the family of the vendor, who claimed he had no legal right to sell it, Da Silva tried to drive them off their land and increase his ranch holdings. The rubber tappers of Cachoeira stood firm and set up roadblocks to keep Da Silva out. In 1988, Mendes launched a campaign to stop rancher Dali Alves da Silva from logging the area that its inhabitants wanted demarcated as an extractive reserve. Mendes not only managed to stop the planned deforestation and create the reserve, but also gained a warrant for Dali's arrest, for a murder committed in another state, Parana. He delivered the warrant to the federal police, but it was never acted upon. Assassination. On the evening of Thursday, December 22, 1988, Mendes was assassinated in his Kshaparai home by Darcy, son of rancher Dali Alves da Silva. The shooting took place exactly 1 week after Mendes' 44th birthday, when he had predicted he would not live until Christmas. Mendes was the 19th rural activist to be murdered that year in Brazil. Many felt that although the trial was proceeding against the actual killers, the roles of the Ranchers Union, the Rural Democratic Union, and the Brazilian Federal Police in his death was ignored. In December 1990, Dali Alves da Silva, his son Darcy, and their ranch hand, Jadu Pereira, were sentenced to 99 years in prison for their part in Mendes' assassination. In February 1992, they won a retrial, claiming that the prosecution's primary witness was biased. The conviction was upheld, and they remained in prison. In 1993, they escaped from jail, along with 7 other prisoners, by soaring through the bars of their prison window. All were recaptured, including Dali Jr., who served the remainder of his sentence with the other killers before returning to Kshaparai. Mendes' murder made international headlines, and led to an outpouring of support for the rubber tappers and environmental movements. In March 1989, a third meeting was held for the National Council of Rubber Tappers, and the Alliance of Forest Peoples was created to protect rubber tappers, rural workers, and indigenous peoples from encroachment on traditional lands. Thanks in part to the international media attention surrounding the murder, the Chico Mendes Extractive Reserve was created in the area where he lived. More than 20 such reserves, along the same lines as Mendes had proposed, now cover more than 8 million acres. The musical group Mana made a song about the death of Mendes. The song was titled Cuando Los Angeles Loran, referring to Mendes as an angel that has died. Paul McCartney dedicated the song, How Many People, from his 1989 album Flowers in the Dirt, to the memory of Mendes. Moreover, composer Claire Fisher, who had himself supplied orchestral arrangements for McCartney's album, dedicated a composition from his own 1989 album to Mendes, namely Kshaparai, from Lembrenes section as. The Brazilian heavy metal band Sepultura also dedicated a song titled Ambush to Chico Mendes' assassination on their album Roots. Mendes was portrayed by Raul Julia in the 1994 telemovie The Burning Season. In 2013, a species of bird, Chico's tyrannulet, was named after him. See also: Dorothy Stang, Environment of Brazil, List of peace activists, Rubber Tree, Vicente Canas, Wilson Pinheiro, José. Copyright Claudio Ribeiro da Silva. References. Notes Bibliography Revin, Andrew. The Burning Season, The Murder of Chico Mendes and the Fight for the Amazon Rainforest. Island Press. ISBN 978-1-55963-089-4. Revin, Andrew. The Uncertain Legacy of Chico Mendes. New York Times. Rodrigues, Gumersindo and Rabin, Linda. Walking the Forest with Chico Mendes, Struggle for Justice in the Amazon. University of Texas Press. ISBN 978-0-292-71705-3. Dwyer, Augusta. Into the Amazon, Chico Mendes and the Struggle for the Rainforest. Key Porter Books. ISBN 1-55013-223-7. External links, website and documentary about Chico Mendes, Voice of the Amazon, a Euro award-winning documentary about Chico's life and death, Children of the Amazon, a Euro official website of the documentary film, Living with Chico Mendes, a Euro documentary from the BBC World Service, Extractive Reserve by Ixo Rio Branco, Rio Januáperi.